Kyle, is death really magnetic?
It may not be magnetic, but it sure is attractive. And you know what else is attractive? The band we're covering today. Today we'll be tackling the, in my opinion, best metal band in the 80s. We've got Metallica. What do you think about Metallica, Mason?
Metallica is one of those few metal bands that can really stick to people who aren't really into metal. And I think the reason why is mainly because
of the Enter Sandman, the one everybody knows.
Not just that one, but also I think the reason why is because when it comes to metal, and the perspective of people who don't like metal is that, oh, metal is just people who are screaming about really edgy things and be all like, wow, look how edgy
basically
and loud I am.
Everybody who isn't into metal usually thinks all metal is like Saint Anger, which we will get into soon.
Or people think that, oh, metal is very evil or something back in the 80s. Remember that?
Yeah, that was a thing.
Yeah, that's when, when...
It's the devil!
It's back when parental guidance stickers were becoming a thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a huge problem that metal artists were facing back then.
Hilarious. You know they would play Metallica songs backwards to try to prove it was the devil?
Oh, yeah.
And then it sounded weird because, of course, you know, when you reverse anything, it sounds like Satan's
like,
butthole.
Oh, do you hear that? Do you hear that? Yeah, I hear it.
It's Satan's anus!
It's the sound of you breaking my vinyl record. Can you stop doing that, please?
Anyway, let's get into Metallica. We on the show...
They're a thrash metal band.
We review every album, every studio album, which means we don't have to do live albums. But we will talk about Lulu, and we will talk about...
a lot of their side projects, I guess, too.
Yeah.
A little bit of honorable mention.
Really fun, but of course we gotta start out with their first album. You know, before their first album even hit production, when they were just playing it live, they had a bassist before their famous bassist that died. I couldn't find his name online.
He wasn't the bassist, he was the lead guitarist, and this guy was named Dave Mustaine. Now, before they started recording their first album, which was Kill 'Em All, this guy kind of got salty with the band, mainly because he was dealing with a lot of things like substance abuse and tensions with a lot of band members such as James Hetfield, who did vocals.
When bands get screwed up, it's always drugs.
Yeah, exactly. And the drummer Lars Ulrich, and he was like, you know what? I'm tired of this. I don't want to do this anymore, even though we've only been around.
I'm fed up with this world.
Yeah, like, you know what? Screw this. I'm done. So he leaves. He gets kicked out, and he's like, okay, I'll show them. I'll show them that I can make a better metal band and make better music than them.
Yeah, they went into direct competition with Metallica.
And you may or may not have heard of this band, but it's a little band called Megadeth.
Oh, yes.
That he would later found in 1984. And they are still considered rivals even to this day. Well, at least when it comes to their fans. But we aren't talking about Megadeth. We're talking about Metallica, okay?
In our opinion, Metallica's better. Sorry, Megadeth fans.
I haven't really listened to Megadeth that much.
I have.
So I don't really have an opinion about them.
Their music sounds a lot like their Metallica's second album. It's not the best. But we're not talking about Death Magnetic again. Let's move on. Well, let's move to Metallica's first album,
Kill 'Em All, which was released back in 1983.
Great.
This one was just very, like straight to the point.
It was like a play.
You know, like, it was very straight to the point, and even though some people may seem as though they aren't really there yet, they were there. This was back when the band was, like, probably in their late 20s, early 30s.
Very angry, definitely doing drugs.
Very angry and angsty and hungry, and goddamn were they hungry. Okay, because from the very beginning of the track, you can tell that, like, full force, like, just, it feels like a slap in the face in the best way possible, this entire album. And I know that some of you may say that, a lot of their other work is pretty heavy and like speed metal-like in their other work.
This is just fast.
Yeah.
This is like if you listen to a Doom soundtrack.
Like, with the album as a whole, it's very, like, in your face, you know?
It's got some of my favorite Metallica songs. The album starts with pretty good with Hit the Lights, I personally don't like Hit the Lights, but
it's a decent opener. I think it was kind of made to be as like a little bit of an intro track.
But it is serviceable for the great songs that come afterwards, like my favorite from the album, and technically what the title track would be if there was a title track. It's Four Horsemen.
Oh, that's a good one.
It is real good.
Like, you could basically hear, like, the guitars being like...
It sounds like horses galloping.
Yeah, exactly. Like, really cool stuff like that. And then there's another song that I really like, which is...
Well,
would you call No Remorse underrated, or no?
Yeah, it is, but I want to do it sequentially. Motor Breath, that was good. I really like that song. It helps when you're running. All of Metallica's songs are just straight to the point, great music to play sports, work out, stuff like that. And Motor Breath really encapsulates that. It's not as good as the next song, Jump in the Fire, which is my second favorite song from this album. Great.
They Were Still Hungry.
Lyrically, these songs aren't great.
When it comes to lyrics, I wouldn't really call them bad, but when it comes to the subject matter, it's like very, rock starry things like drugs and sex and, whoa, we're getting all the girls, and like very stereotypical stuff like that.
Well,
this was a young Metallica, alright?
Yeah.
They were kind of still sort of writing off all of their influences at this point in time.
Well, again, what Mason said, and they're more of an instrumental band, which is why their next song, Anastasia, or Pulling Teeth,
that was so good.
Because it's just a solo.
It's a bass solo.
It's just a giant bass solo.
And it doesn't even sound like bass. I guess it sounds like an electric guitar, but it actually is a distorted bass. And I didn't even know that basses could really be distorted that much. Like, I'm surprised that not many...
Hey, no. We've listened to enough Chili Peppers to know a distorted bass. You've listened to Around the World. Come on.
There aren't that many bands that use a distorted bass, but when they do, it sounds like very much like an electric guitar, but with a few differences, right? I think so. Like, you could kind of see that it's a bit deeper than a guitar, of course. Of
course. Next song is Whiplash. It's one of the weaker songs on the album. It was okay. What did you think anything of Whiplash?
I think this was the first single for this album. Right?
Yes, it was.
I think Metallica at this point was just one of those bands that really tried to set the bar high up. When they released Whiplash, they wanted to kind of pick out, probably, maybe the least catchiest one, or the least memorable song, and just kind of put it out as the lead single.
Sorry to everybody listening.
So they didn't really want to spoil the greatest songs on each record, back when they were still doing that kind of thing. And people also said that Kill 'Em All was sort of like a prototype for the speed metal genre, you know what speed metal is, right?
Yeah, fast-paced, high-tempo, little words.
I think songs on here go up to 115 beats per minute or something? 120?
Yeah.
Wow.
Pretty fast. Next up we got Phantom Lord, which besides sounding extremely edgy and like an Xbox One gamer tag, is also a pretty good song on the album. I don't have many thoughts about a lot of songs that Metallica has made, but...
They started off pretty great.
With a
bang.
No Remorse was a song. I don't really remember No Remorse that well, but I really liked Metal Militia.
Metal Militia.
Now how you pronounce it? Okay. And of course...
There is the one that everybody knows about.
The one, the only...
Seek and Destroy?
Yeah.
I think that's their most heaviest song vocally, at least, because this was back when James really screamed, not that much. Not screaming the whole la la la, but it was a very loud kind of singing,
That mock scream you gave was super cringy. I just hope you know that.
I thought you said that screaming in metal was cringy to you.
It is. It is. But Metallica can pull it off. They sound good. Their instrumentals are good enough to pull it off.
Like, it's a great debut record, and for most bands, at least as we know, like, the debut record could
usually isn't good, but with
or,
Metallica it is.
Or just okay.
Remember Fungus Among Us?
Oh yeah, that
Or
one.
the self-titled for the Red Hot Chili Peppers?
Oh yeah.
They were, like, not great.
Not polished.
I don't listen to those.
And is it just me, or does the vocals seem very, like the vocals seem kind of echoey compared to their other records, right? Like, the production on here, it could get a bit rough at times, but other than that, and other than the very stereotypical subject matter that this album has, it's a pretty good album.
It didn't matter the quality, because people would pirate this stuff off Napster for, like, garbage quality all the time. That's how people listen to Metallica back in, which will tie in later, because Metallica sues Napster way into their career, and we'll talk about that. But we can move on from Kill 'Em All. My thoughts of this album, great.
Ride the Lightning.
Ride the Lightning is next.
Their sophomore record.
I really like Ride the Lightning again. It's not as memorable as the last one, but it's shorter and has some really great songs that I like to talk about. I have a lot to say about Ride the Lightning. Let's start with Fight Fire with Fire. Take it off, Mason. What do you think about Fight Fire with Fire?
Fight Fire with Fire. This one seems like one of those songs that has, I think it's one of those songs that starts out with very decent intro track, kind of like with their last record, but it feels a lot more mature. Yeah. Like, this whole album feels a lot more mature in subject matter, and a lot more ambitious and sophisticated, because there's, like, the majority of these songs on Ride the Lightning kind of take a lot of themes of death and how many things can kill a person. Like, I think there's a song...
Yeah, Trapped Under Ice.
Trapped Under Ice. I think there's a song about suicide. There's a song about being executed.
Creeping Death.
Yeah, which is about... which Creeping Death retells, like, the biblical story of the plague of the death of the firstborn that happened in Exodus 12:29, and I think it describes the 10 plagues, right?
In Egypt, yeah.
Even though it does only describe 4 of them.
Yeah. In Ride the just like in Four Horsemen, so there's some biblical influences. There's Ride the Lightning, which is the title track, pretty good, but not a lot of people liked it in comparison to other songs. It's got For Whom the Bell Tolls, which is my...
This one.
It's good.
This one. Okay. The intro to this thing? Amazing.
It's creepy.
It is so good.
It's creepy.
Yeah, and I think this has to be, like, one of the best, like, build-ups to any Metallica song ever, because, like, of course, you hear the bell ringing, and then it just, like...
It's kind of like It's kind of like Black Sabbath in a way.
Like, there's, like, the build-up is so perfectly executed. Like, there's the riffs that just scream in your face, and then it gets a lot more fast-paced when it comes to tempo later in the intro, and then when the vocals finally come, it's like, wow! It's like the lyrics on this thing is, like, very poetic. Like, seriously.
It's pretty great.
And from the title of the song, you can tell that it's, of course, based off of the book that's about the Spanish War.
Yes.
You know, I think this was based off of the Spanish Wars that was trying to take independence from Mexico. Or was it? Not Mexico. It was.
There's a lot of old influence in these Metallica songs, and Metallica songs in general. Fade to Black is interesting because whenever I listened to their first album, I always thought Hit the Lights and Fade to Black were two opposites, and if you listen to them one after another, it's kind of like an intro and an outro. So I think...
This was also their first ballad, right?
Yes. So I think what was supposed to happen is Ride the Lightning wasn't actually supposed to be an album, and my theory is that everything from Fight Fire with Fire to Fade to Black was supposed to be in their first album, but they cut it due to production. But that's just my theory, because, you know, I like to tie things together.
Well, why do you, think that, though?
Because, you know, Fade to Black is when a play ends, or a movie ends, and Hit the Lights is when a play or movie
Like the trope
begins.
where, the last song of the album was, very quiet and stuff?
Yes. That's what I always envisioned, but I'm probably wrong.
Like, the bandmates kind of looked at Kill 'Em All and thought that, okay, it's really good, we like this, but it's a bit too fast, you know? It's a bit one note when it comes to the tone, because, like, from beginning to end, it's, like, thrashy and in your face.
It's like a roller coaster.
Like, there's gotta have to be some diversity, and that's why they had songs like Fade to Black, which is kind of like a slow-paced kind of ballad that they wanted to do.
Yeah. We already talked about Trapped Under Ice, which is basically a song about being trapped under ice. Pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, and like waking up when you can't even like move, you can't call out for help or scream, so you're just kind of stuck there.
For someone who's had sleep paralysis, I've had sleep paralysis, it's just like that.
Oh my god, I've heard that sleep paralysis.
It's pretty fucked up.
Yeah.
Now, Escape is...
I think this is like one of James's least favorite songs, mainly because he thought it felt too radio friendly.
I like it. Maybe I'm just a basic bitch, but I really like it.
And then there's the closing track, The Call of Cthulhu.
Now, well, it's not Call of Cthulhu, it's Call
You're
of...
into...
Okay, no. It's Call of Cthulhu because you spell Cthulhu with a C, and it's CTL. This is with a K, and it's a lot shorter than how you'd actually spell Cthulhu. And I am a massive, got a giant erection when it comes to H.P. Lovecraft. I love his works.
Yes.
I have every single one of his books. I've got the original print of Shadow over Innsmouth and Secret in the Witch House. I'm a huge fan, so when I heard this, I think this song really goes along with if you've ever read any H.P. Lovecraft, the Tale of Nyarlathotep. I think it goes along with that more than it does the actual story of Call of Cthulhu, because that story is a lot more of a soft build-up, where Call of Cthulhu's a mystery.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like a theme with at least most of H.P. Lovecraft's work, where it kind of, like, at first it seems very normal and calm, like something that's, like, it feels progressive with the stories.
And then it hits you to be the incomprehensible outer gods that you cannot even fathom.
Like, when you see, like, Cthulhu, or however you pronounce it.
Well,
like,
actually,
you see him as like kind of like a squid head monster with like claws and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think he doesn't really actually look like that, right?
Because you're not able to comprehend him.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
the point of Cthulhu.
And when Metallica wanted to pay homage to H.P. Lovecraft's work, they did it perfectly on this track. And even though it is an instrumental track, like, it's very progressive.
If you look it up, the original name to this song was going to be Tribute to Erlier, and Erlier is the ancient city where Cthulhu rests, and I thought that was pretty interesting. Anyway.
Yes, I know, it's just... Wow.
I'm a big H.P. Lovecraft geek, and even though he was a big racist, look that up, I am a big H.P. Lovecraft geek, and this song made me cream my pants. And that's the end of Ride the Lightning. I really liked Ride the Lightning.
So after Ride the Lightning...
This is where shit gets wild. Sorry I'm cussing much. YouTube's gonna smack us.
You're demonetized even though this is non-profit.
Master of Puppets comes up next, and this is
a fan favorite, I think, right? Like a lot of people...
love Master of Puppets.
Like a lot of people think that this is their best album, even though, to me at least, I don't know which Metallica album is my favorite, to be honest. Like,
yeah.
It's kind of like the same thing with our Foo Fighters episode, where I didn't really know which one was my favorite.
Because they're all really good, except for one, which we will talk about in a minute.
We're doing a lot of foreboding in this episode, like, oh, we'll talk about this later.
Oh, we will talk about it later. I think everybody who's a Metallica fan knows what it is.
No, the first thing I want to talk about when it comes to Master of Puppets is that if you compare the track listing to Ride the Lightning and Master Puppets, they are, like, incredibly similar. And the reason why is that is because both open up with an up-tempo song with an acoustic intro, followed by a very lengthy title track, and a fourth track with a lot of ballad elements, and that one being Welcome Home Sanitarium, which is based off of the movie Who Came Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Is that what it's called, right?
Yes, and it's a good movie. You should watch it.
For some reason, I haven't watched it yet.
It was a book, too.
Oh, it was?
Yeah.
And would you really call Welcome Home a specific ballad?
it could be a ballad. It's a lot like Fade to Black. It's a bit more up tempo than Fade to Black.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's start off with the opening track,
Battery. Ooh.
Oh,
Okay.
he just creamed.
Okay, yeah.
He just nutted.
Battery. This one is like, again, it first, like I said before, it takes off with this very like acoustic intro. You know, it kind of settles you in, thinking that it'll be a lot more
Wait.
inviting.
Wait. Everybody, I have to stop this. Mason is wearing Hawaiian pants. I just thought I'd point that out. I just wanted.
Thank you for interrupting me with that very important info.
I just realized it. I just can't even.
Oh my god! Can I please continue?
Yes.
So it settles you off with
Hawaiian pants.
with the acoustic stuff, right? And then it just slaps you in the face, and it immediately reminds you of stuff from Kill 'Em All. And I think this song is mostly about like the fans, you know, and it gives them their fuel. They are the battery to the band Metallica, and like they see all of the bands like moshing and just going crazy. This is like the perfect mosh pit song. It's basically an anthem to like, think of this as like Metallica's version of the campfire song from SpongeBob, where you're like trying to sing along with it, but you just end up failing miserably, even though I can sing the campfire song pretty good.
And I've never watched SpongeBob.
You're sad. You are a sad little man.
Hey. This person didn't play Minecraft until 2019.
And I'm sad too.
We're both sad people. But let's get back to Master of Puppets. With their next song, Master of Puppets.
Yeah.
Which is not as good as I thought it was going to be, unfortunately.
But, Master of Puppets, the title track, is one of those songs where they talk about the more mature subject matter, which is about substance abuse, mainly cocaine, in this song in particular.
Because that's what the band members did.
Yeah, I think they were still kind of in that, like, rock star phase, I guess, but with some hints of maturity here and there, you know?
Yeah. Mosh pits, hookers, and cocaine.
Another thing is that James' vocals kind of matured from, like, the hoarse shouting of the first two albums to, like, a more deeper in control, yet very aggressive style. Have you noticed that?
I have. Master of Puppets is more mature, quieter, and in my opinion, I think it takes a hit for that. I don't like it as much as the last two. But I will say this is the first time I want to talk about the album art, because it gives you that early 2000s stank, even though this was 90s, 80s?
86.
86. You know there were like several thousands of 13-year-olds who had the Master of Puppets album art on their desktop,
or like their poster
in
their room
in
or something.
144p. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They played it over AMVs. This is that kind of album art. I really like it.
You can also see like the hands, those hands being like the master of all puppets. I think the album art represents not something that's from the title track, but more something that's being laid upon on another track on here, which is Disposable Heroes. Now, this album particularly isn't really that political, but when it does, it gets like straight to the point.
When it does political, when it is
political, it does give it straight to you, because like, you know how like all of the world leaders, when it depends on the country, basically just sent out,
they're all dickbags,
like very young soldiers who are like at least in their 20s or like 30s or something like that, and like they just think that they're just toy soldiers who will basically give up everything for democracy, or let's do it for the country, even though fighting is kind of useless. And almost every single war is due to like really dumb things, mainly because of one guy or like one country was just kind of being a dick.
It's really dumb, and Metallica wanted to comment on it, and I for one can agree.
And the leaders don't care about the soldiers, because like while they're fighting out and dealing with a lot of like hardships and like PTSD
They're
and
getting-
anxiety.
The world leaders are getting poo-tang and drinking wine.
Watching all the chaos take place. It's just sick, don't you think?
And then when the war is over, the world leaders are the ones who are congratulated.
Like, oh, don't worry about it. We can just get some more soldiers because we know that people will fight and die, so we can look good, I guess, but not really.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, after Master of Puppets, I kind of want to go sequentially, but Mason here likes to just spout out his favorite songs. Let's move on to the thing that should not be.
This is another song about Cthulhu.
Yes, I love Lovecraft. That is a quote from Call of Cthulhu, obviously, but it's an homage to really all of Lovecraft's work because the thing that should not be. It's obviously an ode to Lovecraft's most popular letter to himself. Because if you didn't know, Lovecraft would just straight up write these letters to his friends and himself, these stories. He wouldn't write them down in books because some of them were so short. He'd just straight up write letters. It was weird.
Wasn't his first story when he was like 12 or something?
Yeah, he was a pretty screwed up child.
Oh, wow.
But it's obviously about his most popular one because Call of Cthulhu, the story, is like the Enter Sandman of Lovecraft stories. It's the most overrated. It's not as good as his other ones. But even though it's a quote from that, it's a whole homage to all of Lovecraft's
Yeah, so
works.
like the whole like song is basically them kind of subtly telling the viewer or the listener about all of the references and stuff like that.
Cosmic horrors,
Yeah.
the outer gods, the old ones, stuff like that. Because if you didn't know, Cthulhu was only mentioned in like 3 stories, and Lovecraft's work didn't become popular at all until after he was already dead. So
What'd you think of the song itself?
it was pretty good. Again, I'm biased because I really love H.P. Lovecraft.
And one more thing, actually no, 2 more songs we want to talk about. And the first one is the second to last track, Orion. This is another instrumental track. And the reason why they called it Orion is because of kind of the middle section of the song. And this one kind of has these little segments, right? Like, for example, there are 3 parts. There's a very heavy beginning with the very well-known riff. It goes
Don't try to mimic the sound. Mason.
Yeah, that one. And then there's this very spacey bass-led interlude, and then the ending is kind of like a recapitulation that brings back the heaviness that the first phase really got. You know, and the lead and rhythmic guitars come in with a very spacey-sounding melody, hence the name Orion.
Yeah.
Right?
Isn't that a star?
It's a constellation.
Dang, well, I don't know anything about astrology or whatever. Studying the stars.
You cannot make friends with those Scorpios, okay, man?
A side note, I love people who base their whole life off astrology. They're like, you're such a Scorpio, oh my god.
Or, oh my god, a relative did die in the past 10 years. Thanks, horoscope.
It's stupid, but so are we.
And then there's the final track on this thing, Damage Inc. Now, at first, when listening to this, you might be kind of thinking that, oh, this kind of sounds like Battery, right? And I think you're right, but I think the main difference between Battery and Damage Inc. are a few things, like, you know how Battery, he, like, screams out Battery sometimes?
Yeah.
Even though that's not the only memorable thing about that song. Well, there's this thing where he, like, whispers, Damage Incorporated, blah, blah, you know, and then, like, just banging on the drums, and it's like a hammer just banging all over you, you know? Kind of like a Battery was a slap to the face.
Well, that's how Metallica feels in general. It's very violent and angry, and I love it.
Think of these 2 songs as kind of like 2 sides of the same coin, no?
But after Master of Puppets, is this when their bassist died?
Yes.
F in the chat for their bassist. What was his name?
I think his name was,
We have to scroll through our little notes thing.
well, one of their original bassists passed away due to a bus incident, which is a shame because his bass solos were like really solid in their past 3 records.
Yeah, it's not uncommon though. 90% of deaths in America are due to car accidents. It's the lead killer. It's
Cliff
just kind of
Burton.
sad. Yeah, his name's Cliff Burton. We had to look it up on Wikipedia because we're unprepared and stupid. But F in the chat to that guy. Sorry that 2 assholes
And
from
like
the
the
internet
sad
forgot your
part
name.
about it is that he's only known for like dying in a bus incident, and that's it. Nobody really talks about all the solos he've made and the contributions.
Remember in the first album, that one, Pulling Teeth?
Yeah,
That was him. That was all him. And
That was
it sounded
great.
amazing.
I know, right?
And it's so sad that he passed away. F in the chat.
So then, after he passed away, unfortunately, Jason Newsted came into the scene to be the replaces bassist.
Replaces bassist.
Which is so ironic because this next album, Justice for All, from 1988, is very infamous for not having a bass line, or at least you can't really, like, hear it inaudibly.
The bassist was still getting his footing.
Yeah, but, like, I don't know what happened, but when they were producing the album, it was originally produced by a guy named Fleming Rasmussen. I'm sorry if I said that wrong. His last name is kind of weird.
If you sign a deal with anyone whose last name is Rasmussen, then you probably are in a bad place to begin with.
Yeah. He only, like, produced some of the album and not the entirety of it, and so they had to produce the rest of the album themselves. And I think that's the reason why you can't really hear the bass. So you see all of these, like, fan-made versions where they kind of paste in their own bass lines themselves, so they can quote-unquote fix it, even though it still is a pretty solid record. And, Kyle, if you thought that some of the songs on Master Puppets were political, wait till we talk about Justice for All. Just by looking at the title and the artwork for this thing, you know that the band has a lot to say about America at this point in age.
Yeah. I don't like politics, so I think Mason should.
But it's not just about America. I think it's also about a lot of social issues as well, like censorship and war, and even like stuff like nuclear brinkmanship, stuff like that.
Blackened. That's a song.
That's an environmentalist song.
Yeah, because everything is kind of getting screwed over by humans. Still is. Metallica didn't solve anything. We're still assholes who destroy the environment for our own personal gain. Nothing changes. Everything stays the same. At least the song was good. Don't you agree, Mason?
Yeah, definitely. And another reason why I like the song so much is because it's one of those songs that use metaphors in a very effective way, and it's not completely in your face. Like, at first listen, I didn't even know this was an environmentalist song until I actually, like, looked it up.
Yeah, you gotta read into it. It's kind of, it's got an undertone to it.
That's why Genius exists.
Thanks to Metallica for not shouting, "Environment trash bad" in
You're
our
killing
faces.
the world, yeah. You know, like, being, like, very unsubtle like that.
Linkin Park. But, yeah, they can put metaphors in their song, and it works. And I can really respect Metallica for that. You know, people always think, it's a metal band, all they do is scream the things they want you to know. But, no, it can be very profound. And
Then we go to the next song on this thing, the title track.
And Justice for All.
And I think this kind of covers the same ground as the previous album with Disposable Heroes, but this time it makes the leaders of each country kind of feel very egotistical, and they're kind of telling us why we need to fight and die for, like, all of these meaningless conflicts.
They're absolutely right. Obama went on, like, 18 golf trips while he was president. Kim Jong-un just sits in his room all day.
And likes cheese.
And likes cheese. And Bond films. Trump's been pretty lazy when it comes to a president. He's been on so many vacations and trips. Every president's been super lazy.
And just like in the song, he keeps saying, justice is right, justice is not wrong. They always keep on saying that justice. We need to preserve our name as a country, even though we should instead try to at least, improve our communication with other countries despite our differences.
Yeah, absolutely. It gives that political vibe and message so well. Metallica can't just be called a metal band. It's so much more than that. And these songs on this album really describe how a metal band can be even poetic in some regards. Now, we've been talking about And Justice for All for a while, so let's move on to Eye of the Beholder. What are your thoughts on Eye of the Beholder?
Eye of the Beholder. This one was pretty decent when it comes to songs on this album. I think it's mostly about the very... I think it's basically the very concept of being too into yourself, being egotistical, and how it could really affect other people and yourself.
I'm really seeing that this album, on second view, it's really poetic and just nice to listen to. I really don't like political albums.
Usually, yeah.
That's why I didn't like a lot of Pearl Jam. But stuff like this and Eat the Elephant can really give a message and prove itself in song form. And that's a lot more fun than listening to, a stupid political debate. That's why I love when a band can pull off shaping their opinion correctly. But I don't want to go through every song on this album. The more and more we go into some of these albums, the less memorable it gets. We'll talk about Load and Reload later, because you could say whatever you want about Saint Anger, at least that's memorable. In all the wrong ways.
But there is the song that we're going to get into next
that
is very memorable.
You could say there's one song on here that everybody remembers.
Yes. And it's one.
Not two, not three, one.
Just one.
Singular.
This one is extremely interesting.
It's such a stupid name, because whenever we say stuff like this one...
The reason why it's called One is mainly because, I'll get to that later, but right now I'm going to talk to you about what the song really means. One is based on the story and the movie called Tommy Got His Gun. I'm not really sure if any of you have heard of it, even though it's really good. It's kind of a cult classic.
It's an anti-war movie that was from a book in the 30s, 40s, around that time period.
Yeah.
Just for some context.
And then it got turned into a movie from the 1970s, where a World War I soldier is brutally injured by an artillery shell during battle, and when he wakes up, he notices that his legs are gone, his arms are gone, his face is completely gone.
But he's still alive.
And he's still alive. He can still think. I don't know how he's still breathing, but okay, since he doesn't really have a face anymore.
You can see it in the lyrics, hold my breath as I wish for death. Oh God, please wake me.
Yeah, and when I was looking through, all of the clips of this movie, I haven't seen the movie yet, but I plan on seeing it, and just looking at the lyrics and the context of the song, it's just... I think this has to be one of, if not one of the most disturbing songs that Metallica has ever written, because...
It's pretty scary.
When you're in the shoes of this man... The only thing that you can really do is just wait for death and just kind of be lost in your own thoughts. If you can even calm down and, at least try to think about something very, soothing, but you were just out there in war. And war has to be, the worst things ever, obviously.
You won't even know if your side won. You're just a vegetable.
Yeah, and he can only, to even communicate with all of the other officers who are looking at him wow, this is... we definitely aren't going to kill this guy for some reason. All he could do, what he does in the movie to communicate to the other people, especially the nurse, is he bangs his head on the pillow, trying to, get their attention in Morse code, saying, SOS, please help me, and just saying kill me over and over and over again in Morse code for months on end, and they didn't even know until recently, hey, maybe he's doing it in Morse code, and they finally got the idea. And so they get a doctor or somebody into the room, and he tells them, hey, this guy is saying SOS, help me, kill me, I want to die, I am in pain, I'm trapped in my own body, and he wants to die. But the general is like, no, I am not letting the soldier die. He will keep on living on, even though he's clearly suffering. Like, really? And this one quote that you can hear in the music video. By the way, this is Metallica's first music video. Is that this man, what the doctor says, this man is not a product of my profession. He is a product of your profession, and he leaves. And the nurse is like, the nurse tries to even like cut off his like, what are those sack things that gives you like nutrients or whatever?
That's IV.
IV tries to like cut off like life support and everything, but then the general stop her, and he keeps on living on. And my God, just thinking about it, it's just
really messed up,
disturbing, and it's not even like gory or like in your face like horror. It's more psychological.
It's like if you've ever watched JoJo Cars at the end of part 2 when he gets jettisoned into space. You're just stuck.
It is so disturbing. There's even a point where he's thinking like, hey, what if, like, can you at least show the other people in the public what happens to a man when they fight in wars and in conflicts and stuff? It's just that he's basically just one example of, like, these very awful and horrendous injuries. Like, if you're even, like, lucky to be alive. But in this case, he's just kind of stuck between life and death. Like he's in purgatory or something. Like, oh my God. But the song itself is extremely progressive. One thing with, like, the entire album is, like, very progressive if you think about it. And there's even a part in the song where, like, the guitars go very fast, like, like it feels like gunfire, right? It sounds like gunfire?
Yeah.
From, like, a machine gun or something. It's really cool. And you can hear, like, all the guys yelling in the intro of the song. And, like, wow.
It's pretty messed up.
It's, like, one of their best songs, I swear to God.
It's pretty great. Do you want to keep talking about And Justice for All?
There are a few more songs I want to talk about. And there is one more song. And that is Harvester of Sorrow, which was the lead single to this thing. I'm not really sure what the song is really about. I think it's about kind of... Well, Harvester of Sorrow is one of those very... at least when it comes to music-wise...
Sorry, we're tripping over our own words.
Yeah, I know.
We're still thinking about how fucked up it is, the premise of 1.
Yeah, I know. It's, like, after, like, something like 1, and you get something that's very straightforward, like Harvester of Sorrow, it's like, wow...
It kind of fucks with your brain, yeah.
It's still a pretty good song. I can definitely see why they would pick this as a lead single. And remember when I said that Metallica was going through a phase where they wanted to pick, like, the least memorable song or the song that's not very catchy as the lead single or not very straightforward?
Yeah.
I think this is the album where they kind of started to do the opposite of that. Where they did, like, the catchiest song or the most straightforward song as, like, the lead single.
And you will see that heavily in their next album, but we haven't gotten to that.
So yeah, overall, even though, like, the bass is clearly not audible at all whatsoever, and it like, something is missing. Like every time I listen to one of those songs on Justice for All, there's like, wow, this is a lot. I think this would be better if the bass is still audible, but it's still a really solid album.
If the bassist was still alive, it'd be a lot better, but we gotta move on.
Jason is good too.
Yeah, but he hasn't caught ground yet. He's still finding himself.
He's still the new kid.
He gets to the cool kids table. But let's move on. Sorry if I'm trying to move on.
The 90s come around, and before we get into their self-titled album, this was during a time where a lot of bands were kind of going through a very transitional period. Because remember, in the 80s, a lot of, like, heavy metal and thrash metal like Metallica were starting to fade down due to a lot more of genres like grunge coming into play, alternative metal,
Chili Peppers, punk.
Like, a lot of, like, other subgenres were, like, blowing up at this time. And metal was kind of in the beginning of dying down a bit, even though alternative metal was still being huge. And this was when bands like Rush, Metallica, I think even like,
Death metal and Creed. Well, no, not Creed, but death metal.
I think, yeah, like death metal in general, trying to like sort of change their sound in order to really get with the times. You know?
Yeah, even King Crimson was doing that now. It's
all
about the new wave.
Yeah. And that's where we get into their self-titled album, which is considered to be called the Black Album. When this first came out, this was the album that kind of changed gears when it comes to sound. And the main reason is that it's not a thrash metal album. It is a heavy metal album.
It is.
And it's not that fast-paced, it's not like thrashy and in your face, you know.
It's not as, I want you to listen to Four Horsemen and then listen to Enter Sandman, and you'll see, Four Horsemen's very up-tempo, high beat, and, stuff like Sad But True and Nothing Else Matters is calmer, still got the same edginess that Metallica's always had.
It's like instead of the setting being 11, they turned it down to like 9 or something, you know?
They turned it down to 9.5.
Yeah, and the hardcore fans, quote-unquote, were like, oh my god, Metallica isn't thrash metal anymore, now they're just regular metal, oh my god, wah.
They're selling out.
They're selling out. I hate it every time people say, oh, they're selling out because they're doing something different. I think the right time to say that the band is selling out is when they sound completely different. Like, at least Metallica is still, you know, metal.
It's audible. You can hear it.
Yeah. At least that they're still metal.
You can still tell it's Metallica.
Like, some bands, some rock bands, straight up make pop albums just for the sake of it.
Linkin Park.
30 Seconds to Mars.
Sorry, we do that. Are fake coughs even audible? I don't even know.
But
let's just get into it. It starts off with the one, the only, the one that everybody knows.
Enter Sandman.
It's about crib death.
Crib death? It is?
Well, originally it was about crib death, which is basically when a baby dies really early on, which has happened to my family a shit ton. But eventually they thought that wasn't commercially viable enough, so they changed it to lies you're told as a child and how that affects you when you grow up.
In your closet, in your head, you're just imagining it, kid, okay? Go back to sleep.
Go to sleep, stop talking to me. It's really a good song, but it is overrated.
It's overplayed, you know, because, like, I swear, there was this one time where I was listening to Metallica on shuffle, and, like, Enter Sandman was played, like, at least 5 times or something. I'm like, ugh.
It's a good song, it's just not...
More variety, please. Okay?
Sad But True was good. What about Nothing Else Matters?
Nothing Else Matters. Okay, so this is when... You know how in the previous albums they would only have about, like, 1 or 2 ballads in here?
Yeah.
They went full on with the ballads on their self-titled record, which is good. I really like the ballads on here. Especially with songs like Nothing Else Matters, or The Unforgiven.
The Unforgiven was great.
Yeah, I know. Have you seen the music video to The Unforgiven?
Nope.
It is so good. It's so cinematic. Because you see, like, the band, and it's all, like, black and white, and it's very moody, and you see, like, a little boy rummaging around in a very, like, apocalyptic, kind of like a post-apocalyptic setting in a city, you know, and he lives in this, like, very small house, like, in a small room, you know, under a house.
Yeah.
And he's just kind of living his life in this, like, drab world, you know, and you see, like, cutting it back to the band. It's so good. They even made like a full-on, like, cinematic trailer version of it, where it didn't have the music and instead had, like, very atmospheric sounds, and it kind of felt like a silent movie on that alternate version of the music video, you know?
Yeah.
Like, wow, I love the music video to The Unforgiven. It's a ballad. It's basically about oppression, I think, right? Where you try to be yourself, you try to be more than what people kind of perceive to be the norm, but it just keeps on beating you over the head that, hey, we don't like you because you're different, or we don't like you because you're not charismatic or mainstream, or anything like that.
And you gotta sympathize with that, because Metallica, imagine trying to date anyone who's slightly religious as a Metallica band member. Like, and most of the US is religious, like, you know how many people thought Metallica was actually made by the devil? My mom, she's told me this story. She thought she was gonna die because she was listening to Metallica once.
Oh my god. And nowadays, you can, like... Remember when the Kill 'Em All album art was controversial?
Yeah.
That stuff is tame compared to, like, what gets pumped out today.
I know. People are fine with rap songs being about drugs, death, murder, sex, violence. But
same thing with rock back then.
But rock back then, people were like, no, it was evil, devil, kill it, bad.
I remember back in the 40s where people thought that jazz was evil.
Oh yeah, jazz is evil.
My god.
Jazz.
Y'all need to, like, calm down, okay?
Well, jazz did create Black Sabbath, so maybe they have a point there, but...
Yeah. So, overall, The Unforgiven. It's basically my favorite song on this entire thing.
I don't have much to say about the Black Album. Do you have anything else?
I do. Don't Tread on Me, which is another song that I really like. And it kind of starts off with this, like, very anthem-like riff that you would kind of hear in, like, one of those football events or something like that, or maybe you would hear it in some sort of parade or something, but then it goes to, like, very menacing very quickly in the next, like, next few minutes of the song. You know, I think it's another one of those, like, war-oriented songs. And it's of course, referencing the snake. You know that snake flag and it says, "Don't tread on me"?
Yeah.
Which is also, you can also see it on the cover art as well.
Yeah, the snake ingrained in the black. Also, some of the promotional art from it was specifically the snake, but there was no black on it. People didn't know how to advertise this album, but they really wanted to because it was so popular at the time. So, if you see some of the advertisements for it, for art back then, you'll see a ton of stuff. It's pretty crazy, but back to Mason.
And, Don't Tread on Me, it's gotten some very, like, I think this has to be the song with, like, the loudest solos, at least when it comes to this album.
The bassist found himself, and it's audible, and you can listen to it.
Yes, at least somebody didn't screw up on some of the mixing on here. The production is, like, perfect on this thing, seriously.
Very mainstream. I can see why people said they sold out, but they didn't.
They really didn't. And this record is very popular for a good reason, for a very good reason, you know?
And a not so good reason, because Enter Sandman isn't as good as...
And it only sold like, I don't know, 16 million copies, not that much. And over 30 million copies worldwide, not that much, right?
Didn't it go...
Right?
Didn't it go platinum?
Yeah. Like
That's
multi-platinum, I know, right?
It could have gone diamond.
I think it was close, but not that close, you know? I could definitely see this album going diamond in some alternate timeline or something.
Where the Beatles and Led Zeppelin didn't exist. Yeah. Because the Beatles and Led Zeppelin are 90% of the diamond.
Yeah.
Well, definitely Led Zeppelin deserves it, but that's a video topic for another day. But...
And you said that your favorite song on here was Nothing Else Matters, right?
Yes.
Another ballad on here?
Mm-hmm. I also like The God That Failed.
Oh, that one.
Because in my opinion, in my brain, it's kind of the argument, if there is a God, he really sucks at his job because of the amount of people in Africa that are starving, all the diseases that exist. If there really is a God, he sucks ass. It's kind of that argument. And...
maybe he just doesn't like us because we're kind of screwing up right now.
We do kind of suck, but he's the one who created us, so fuck you anyways. So...
And, The God That Failed is one of the more personal songs on here. Like, a lot of these songs feel a lot more sincere and personal, because, like, the previous albums that we've talked about so far are a lot more, they talk about, like, a lot of social issues, but right here, it's a mixture of both things that are very social, political, but also things that are very sincere and personal. And this one, in particular, is about James Hetfield's mother, who died of cancer. and didn't want to be treated at all, and just felt as though that God will help her out.
Yeah, and it didn't, because there is no God, and it lures people into that trap, really, the whole religion thing, where it's like, God will save me, and of course God never saves you, because it's bullshit. And it's a really bad mentality.
Well, at least, like, try to help your struggles with some sort of illness yourself first, you know? At least have the resources that you've made at your disposal, you know? But I guess not.
Yeah, just remember, get yourself treatment, vaccinate your kids.
Please.
Please. If not for you, for all of us.
A Wolf and Man is another song that I like on here.
I didn't like that one.
This one right here feels a lot more, like, tempo-based. Like, I think the huge difference is that the tempo on this album doesn't really change as much as something like their previous albums. It's a lot more straightforward compositionally, right?
Yeah.
And A Wolf and Man is a great example of this sort of change where it just keeps on doing this.
Yeah, I didn't like it though. The tempo, it didn't really get me.
And of course it's about somebody shape-shifting into a wolf, of course.
It's kind of silly.
As I said, this album is a lot more straightforward when it comes to subject matter.
It is.
Sometimes, at least.
Well, at least this album was memorable.
Yes, it was definitely memorable.
It had a lot of great songs.
It had a lot of layers to it, as all their other albums. I don't know why people got so mad.
I can see why people got mad at their next albums, though, because next, I want to cover both Load and Reload as if they were one album.
Wasn't this also, like, the longest gap that they had between studio albums?
Yeah, and they also sued Clickster.
Not clicksters.
Yeah,
from that one movie.
Yeah, I got
clicksters.
I've got Unfriended on the brain.
They haven't really done that yet.
I watched that movie recently to review it. It sucks. Never watch it. It is terrible. Cyberbully. Oh my god. Clickster.
So anyway, after the Black Album blew up, they just attained legendary status, right? And they were like, okay, how are we going to follow up an album that...
I'm such an idiot. I'm sorry, I can't get over that.
It's fine. How are we supposed to follow up an album that's very huge? We just obtained legendary status. We're so huge and big right now. In the 90s, back when heavy metal was kind of dying down a little bit, slightly.
So what they did is they released two of the most mediocre albums they've ever made, Load and Reload.
Originally, this album was supposed to be a double album, Load and Reload together, but they couldn't really fit that on there on any disc or vinyl. So they just said, you know what, let's just get one side of the disc out of the way, and then the other half of the album we can release maybe about like a few months later.
Instead of reviewing this album as if it was a full album, I want to review it like what are some highlights, because it's a lot of songs, and I can't remember most of them.
It's kind of a mixed bag overall, you know? But I do have to give credit where credit is due.
Ain't My Bitch is good.
It's a decent intro, yes, but overall when it comes to the Load albums, it's very diverse in genres. Like, you can see a lot of, like, hard rock, there's even, like, a country, song on here, Mama Said.
Country Bumpkin.
And there's a lot of blues on here as well. You can see some blues.
We're from Texas, so country music kind of screws with my brain.
Rules the state.
Yes.
There's a lot of blues influences on here. I think there's also some, like... I think there's some soft rock moments on here as well.
Alright, so before we started the video, we were trying to figure out how we were going to cover this, because we couldn't think of a way to think about Load and Reload. And what we did is we played a game where we decided we played a song from either of the albums, and we tried to quiz the other on which album it was from. And out of the 6 that we did, the only person who got one right was Mason.
I mean, like, it does make sense that both of them would sound the same, because originally they were going to be the same album. But they had to split into 2, and the thing that's really surprising is that I think the reason why we feel kind of mixed with this album is because both of these albums are over 70 minutes long each.
Yeah.
Load is literally their longest album to date.
It is huge.
It is, yeah, it really is. And the last track on Load, The Outlaw Torn, originally had like a full-on like solo at the end, but they had to cut it out mainly because it was like about a minute too long. So they had to make like two versions where like the solo is cut, the solo isn't cut, stuff like that. And one thing that I noticed is that, remember when I said that this was back when metal was kind of going through its alternative phase, back when a lot of alternative stuff was really blowing up?
Yeah.
Is it just me, or does like the second half of Reload sound way too much of like...
You're right.
A lot of sludge metal like Alice in Chains? Like, it's still pretty heavy, but in an extremely slow pace.
It is pretty groggy. I'm not a big...
And James even does kind of like try to have that like slow, grimy feel to his vocals.
Yeah, yeah, I can see. So we're gonna list off some highlights and talk about them. I'll list off two right now from Load. King Nothing. I really like King Nothing.
King Nothing is good. It's great.
It's like the Fallen Kingdom Minecraft parody, but as a rock song. Sorry I made that comparison. I just wanted to be cringy for a sec. And Until It Sleeps seemed pretty Lovecraftian to me, even though the influence wasn't jumping out at you. It was pretty good. You could see it in the lyrics. Ain't my bitch. Sorry, I cursed. Bit potty words. It's good.
The Memory Remains. That's a solid one too.
Yeah. Mama said it's too country for me. I don't got any more.
Said the person who's really into the band, even though they're extremely
The
country.
band did it right.
They did.
We tried to record an episode on the band, but Mason was dry.
We'll get to that when we get there.
We might release it as a blooper.
But there is one song that I want to talk about in depth at least, and it's the second part of The Unforgiven. Yeah, for people who don't know, The Unforgiven is actually a trilogy of songs, and Reload has the second part. And this one right here, they kind of did the same thing.
What's it called?
The Unforgiven 2.
It's not on.
It's on Reload.
Oh, it's on Reload.
Yes.
Give me a sec. I have a list of the... Yeah, The Unforgiven.
I mean, they kind of did the same thing.
I didn't remember the song. I can't talk about it.
Mostly, the difference is that they basically swapped what was heavy, what wasn't. Like, the verses were soft, the choruses were heavy, kind of like how the first part was kind of the opposite. But the thing about The Unforgiven 2 is that it still kind of has that, like, theme of unforgiveness and kind of questioning yourself. With the first one saying, "Can we forgive you?" The second one sort of focuses on, "Can I forgive you? I know that you cannot forgive me, but can I forgive you for kind of, like, beating me down all over the place and kind of molding me onto what you want me to be?" I think, the main theme of the trilogy is oppression in general, right?
I couldn't tell you. I like the first Unforgiven, but the second one just is lost on me.
It's a theme, and it focuses on how humanity just does not like change. It's a fact at this point.
It really is. Because
do you even know how long people were racist? In America, at least?
Like, till the 90s, 80s.
Well, actually, segregation laws stopped being a thing in the 50s.
Yeah, but people were still wildly racist, and sometimes still are. We live in the southest South. We live all the way down, man.
Like, it takes a very long time for a social change to happen like that. And the LGBT community, they're just being respected this decade, like, just recently.
Yeah.
Even though the community's been around since, like, probably the 60s. But, like, very underground and just kind of hiding from everybody,
Yeah.
Like, people would basically, like, pretend to marry somebody who's like the opposite gender just so they can like hide out the truth, and just stay in the closet, but only in this decade only are people really starting to accept that kind of change, Yeah.
And all the boomers that say, no, No, my single-sex marriage.
It's a younger generation's
It's God's
fault.
way. It's God's way.
It's the younger generation's fault.
Even though they ruined the world a lot.
So overall, load and reload. It was kind
mediocre, not great.
It was kind of a mixed bag, but
it's nowhere near as bad as what is to come.
yes, what is to come. But I have to admit, if you took the first half of load and the first half of reload and just kind of combined them as one single album, I think it would have been pretty solid, don't you think?
They should name that Load Reloaded.
Oh, and by the way, one more thing. Do you want to know the reason why it's called Load? Look at the album art. What does it look like to you?
Spaghetti.
And look at Reload. What does that look like to you?
A schism.
Do you know what those are?
What?
The artwork for Load is a combination of blood and semen. Like, in between two slices of glass together.
Oh.
To make it look like flames. Yes, that is indeed semen. And Reload, that is a combination of blood and urine. That's why it's called Load.
That's pretty disgusting.
Yeah, the artist who made the album cover for these is very special. Let's just say that.
Special.
Yes.
Okay.
Like if you look at his website, there's like an entire like gallery of like making art out of bodily fluids. If you're interested, I'll put a link in the description.
Oh, I also want to say something. If you're a fan of artist websites, check out Kem de Leon's website and check out the Pencil Game. Just don't even question it. Just check it out. Just check it out.
We'll get more in depth into that another time.
Yes, in another episode that may or may not happen. But
yeah.
Now we have to talk about it.
Okay.
Imagine the most rushed, like, angry group of people put into a studio that they didn't like, made to make music that they didn't want to make.
Metallica and the early 2000s, not a great era for them. Not in the slightest.
You could say that their way of making music was pretty frantic, tick, 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 tick.
This is 2003's Saint Anger.
Oh, I am Saint Angry at this album and how I had to listen to all of it.
Why are people defending this again?
You could say that this album is some kind of monster when it comes to all of the Metallica albums.
Now, before we get into this album, let's talk about the controversy that happened back in 2001 with a website called Napster.
Yes, that I called Clickster because I'm a fucking moron.
I know.
I've got YMS on the brain.
I know.
It hurts.
So what happened was that the song that they made for Mission Impossible 2, I Disappear,
Yeah.
they found that song on the website Napster. And if you don't know what Napster is, I don't blame you. It's a pretty old website. It's not even like around anymore.
Napster was then.
It was like the Spotify of the early 2000s.
No. Napster was then what YouTube MP3 converter and YouTube are now.
Yeah, definitely.
Pirating music,
yeah. And they were like, okay, what is this? I do not
What
like
is this that stands before me?
What is this? This is stealing. I don't like this. Let's sue this website. So they sued the website, right? And they said that it was copy infringement, even though they were indeed properly credited. Like, it was pretty obvious that Metallica made the song. You know, it's not like Napster was...
But it was against copyright rules because they literally plagiarized the whole song and put it for free, taking away all the revenue.
Well, did they plagiarize it?
Yes.
I think I remembered them crediting Metallica.
They credited it, but if we posted King Crimson songs onto YouTube...
Oh, Robert would not like that.
Oh no, Fripp would slap us really hard and tell us kids to knock it off.
No. Yeah, that's basically what Metallica was thinking about when they sued Napster.
Well, at least Metallica isn't as bad as Fripp, because Fripp was still doing it up until 2018.
Like back when the King Crimson stuff wasn't on streaming services yet, he was like full on strict.
He was mad. He tried to take down the Pornhub release of In the Court of the Crimson King. He was that mad.
Same for Metallica, and it was only like over one song.
Yeah.
Over like one song.
That wasn't that
like,
good.
I Disappear. Yeah, it was for like a very popular movie back at the time, Mission Impossible 2. It's been a while since I've seen that movie. Was it good?
It was.
Yeah, 2 was pretty good. But that's not the point. The point is...
Wait, look at how we're trying to talk about everything except for Saint Anger.
Yeah, we're
that's
just
how bad
deliberately just like...
Let's talk about other things for longer, because I don't want to talk about it.
We have to, Kyle. I didn't want to listen to this. Like, I legitimately skipped over Saint Anger and just went through their next 2 albums, and then was like, okay, fine, I'll listen to Saint Anger last. You know,
this album really makes me frantic. I hope someone doesn't just shoot me once, I hope they shoot me again if I have to listen to this album. This album is some kind of monster, and if you don't get it, I'm making puns off of every song.
So, let's just get this over with. So, Saint Anger, the recording process for this thing...
was a nightmare.
It was a nightmare for the
There
band.
are documentaries on many places about how this was just a disaster.
And that's a whole other story, but to put it very brief, what happened was that originally, recording started back in 2001, but then they had to like postpone it, mainly because of the departure of bassist Jason Newsted, who left the band due to quote-unquote private and personal reasons and physical damage I have done to myself over the years while playing the music that I love, unquote. And that's why he left the band, because this was at the point where it wasn't really that long that Metallica started to gain a very cult following. So maybe he couldn't really stand the fame, I guess?
Also, another reason why this album was bad is... Oh, excuse me. Another reason the album was bad was because the lead singer had recently become sober. And you know how...
At the time, at least.
You know how some people get really angry when they're drunk? That was the lead singer. And that's why he could be really angry.
Like, if you look at the documentary, he was, like, full on... Like, before he had to go into rehab, James Hetfield, he was, like, backlashing on, like, all of the other bandmates. And like, tensions were growing high. Okay, he was going through a lot of stuff. Like, this was also at the point where he just had a daughter. I think it was back when his daughter was about, like, maybe 4 years old. He was going through a lot of, like... He was going through the transition to, like, settling down.
Anyway,
family.
Yeah, he sobered up, which made his music sound worse because it's fake anger. Album called Say Anger was fake anger. He wasn't angry, he was happy. He had a wife and a daughter, and he was settling down. And it was just fake emotions all around. It wasn't good.
But then again, alcoholism isn't that great either. It's not good. But him backlashing over all the bandmates just made things even worse, and they were arguing over creative measures, so... The recording process happened in 2001. It took over, like, a year to record all of that stuff. And when they were filming the documentary, Some Kind of Monster, which is actually pretty good. If you want to check out a more detailed version of what we're talking about right now with the recording of Saint Anger, check out the documentary. It's on Netflix right now. Check it out. It's really good. And they didn't even know that it would go downhill. They thought that they would just make a documentary, and they thought it would go pretty smoothly, like a regular recording process. But once things got really downhill and hectic, they were like, okay, things cannot go that, like, to the point where we can't have to, like, cancel it. So they hired a therapist to sort of tackled everything.
Yeah, an album called Say Anger had a therapist on board to soothe the bandmates.
To soothe them, what?
Soothe.
The soothe? Oh, I thought you said sue.
Yeah, a therapist came in and sued all the bandmates for suing Napster because they're bitches.
No, so the therapist came over and they helped them out. Like, there are literally scenes where it's just them sitting down, everything just feels very awkward, but it's for their own good, you know?
Yeah.
And even to this day, they're, like, kind of embarrassed that they had to, like, hire a therapist since it was that bad, and, like, everything that they were doing was, like, being recorded, like, with cameras and stuff for the documentary itself.
Yeah.
Because they thought that it would be normal, but I guess not. But they didn't cancel it. They didn't say, oh, I don't want to do this anymore because things are getting hectic.
It.
They wanted to keep on letting the people make the documentary because, hey, if we do get through this and we make the album and we are successful with our conflicts, it's a stepping stone. Not just, well, definitely not their music, but to them as people, it's a stepping stone in their career.
And really, that's all that matters.
Yes.
But it was still an awful, awful, awful album, and let's talk about it.
It was a shit record, but for a good reason. They were going through a lot.
Now, it starts off with frantic, tick, 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 tick,
oh,
tick,
that.
tick, tick. Basically, a lot of the songs on this album, except for the title track, are basically, instead of singing words, they're yelling words.
Like, one of the lines on this album is like, my lifestyle determines my death style.
Just the edgiest stuff. Like,
oh my god.
You would hear the soundtrack in Shadow the Hedgehog.
Yeah, 10 out of 10 lyrics there, buddy.
Just really awful. I wouldn't listen to this even on a bad day.
Like, the lyrics on this thing has to be, like, one of the worst things besides the snare drums.
The title track was okay, but... Oh, yeah, let's talk about the snare drums.
The snare drums?
So the drummer decided to be real great. Lars... What the fuck, Lars?
Lars Ulrich. Now, don't get us wrong. He's a very solid drummer.
He just made an awful decision.
And to use snare drums...
in a death metal band.
In a metal band?
Metal band.
I mean, there are some metal bands that included snare drums pretty effectively, like Rage Against the Machine, or, what's that other band called? I think it was, that one industrial band, I forgot what it was called.
Anyway.
They use snare drums, and they did it pretty good, mainly because, well, snare drums do indeed sound industrial, right?
Yes. But Metallica isn't industrial.
Like, I know that they were trying to go through, oh, we want this to sound very authentic, and it wanted to feel like...
It sounded authentically terrible.
Like 4 guys in a garage, I guess.
It sounded like 4 guys going through therapy.
But they kind of failed on that. And for some reason, Lars actually liked how it sounded. And, oh boy, like, Saint Anger, as a song itself, it's not that great, but it's one of the 2 songs that's, like, at least kind of tolerable, I guess.
You
which
can
has
listen to it.
Some good moments. Like, another track on here, which is at least tolerable, is The Unnamed Feeling.
Yeah.
On this track in particularly, the snare drums are quieted down. You do not hear that much snare drums in this. But the lyrics are still terrible because it's like... It's basically describing, like, the thing that you can basically pull on to yourself. Like, kind of say, oh, that's so relatable. I feel anxiety too. So does everybody else. I feel, like, killing somebody too. Like everyone else. That's the unnamed feeling.
Well, I've never felt the ability... I wanted to kill anybody, but I definitely have an anxiety.
That was a joke, Kyle. And they call the feeling unnamed because, well, we have to be vague so people can latch on to that, right?
Well, we have a name. It's called depression, anxiety, and being a sociopath.
Or something like that.
I don't even want to... Okay. Let's just pull up one of the songs. Okay,
I'm just gonna... Okay. The lyrics on here are so just...
All within my hands, squeeze it, crush it down, all within my hands, hold it dear, hold it suffocate.
Hold it suffocate!
All within my hands, love to death, smack you
round and round!
And with all within my hands, beware. Oh, it's so bad.
Love is control. Die if I let go. Oh no. This was...
Hate me now, kill it within my hands.
Emo shit.
It's like if a goth girlfriend that you had was writing a poem about you. I know from experience.
And I think one of the songs, I forgot what song it was, but like, it's basically James just like shouting, "Kill, kill, kill, kill," over and over again as the chorus. And it's like, this is the best you can do? Are you serious? What song was it? On Saint Anger?
I don't remember.
Where he's just like saying "kill, kill, kill, kill" over and over again. It's like, why?
Let me read you some more lyrics while Mason pulls it up, because, oh dear people, this, even the good songs have just some lyrics that'll make you wonder, is this really Metallica? Or is this every goth kid at that one table of school shooters?
I think it was Purify. Is that the song with kill, kill, kill over and over again?
Let me see. Let's look at the lyrics to Purify. Pure if I, can't you help me?
Oh, wow!
Purify, won't you help me?
A play on words, pure if I.
Truth and dare, peeling back the skin, acid wash, ghost white, ultra clean. Is this Mr. Clean?
Like, wow, pure if I.
Wow.
Now let's compare this to some of their earlier work. This is the first verse from the Bell Tolls. Make us fight on the hill in the early day. Constant chill deep inside. Shouting gun, on they run, through the endless grey. On the fight for the right, yes, but who's to say? For a hill, men would kill, why, they do not know. Stiffened wounds test their pride. Men of 5 still alive through the raging glow. Gone insane from the pain that they will surely know.
See, it's...
Poetic as all hell, right?
It's poetic, it's still edgy, but it has a... It has a meaning to it. It's not like using what I want to get what I want. Using what I want to get what I want.
He repeats a lot of stuff on here, too.
Oh, sweet Amber, how sweet are you? How sweet does it get? How sweet are you? How sweet does it get?
This isn't sweet at all.
What is this? What is this?
And that's not even, like, all of the stuff that's wrong with this album. There are no guitar solos on a Metallica record. Of course, there's the snare drums. And believe it or not, there are also elements of nu metal. If you don't know, during the late 90s and the early 2000s...
Everybody was in the nu metal phase.
Yes, nu metal was extremely popular, and this was also the point where nu metal was fading fast. 2003?
Yeah.
It was basically like the deathbed for nu metal. I mean, there are bands who does death metal pretty well, like Korn or Deftones, but when like a band like Metallica does it, oh boy!
Saint Anger, man.
Like the title track where you hear people shout out, "Push it out!" Yeah, like please stop.
Now, hold on. Let's do one more. Frantic. Let's read out some awesome lyrics.
I'm sorry if we keep on talking about the lyrics, but
you live it or lie it. You live it or lie it. My lifestyle determines my death style.
Yeah.
Keep searching, keep searching. The search goes on. Frantic, tick tock, tick tock, tick, tick tick, tick tick tock, tick tick, tick 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 tock, tick 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 tick
tock. My God.
What are these lyrics?
I don't know, man.
Let's move on.
Just one more thing that I need to tell you. The title track, even though it's one of the most tolerable, at least, songs on here, it won a Grammy.
How?
It won a Grammy. Because they're Metallica? Because they're Metallica, you're gonna give them a Grammy on, like, their worst album ever. That's trying to be cool and hip and be all nu metal.
Even the album art is weird. Look at how the thumb is...
You don't even see the logo on here.
Look at how the thumb looks in comparison to the rest of the hand. It's like, if it was a normal thumb, it'd look like that, but it's like that.
If you put in, like, any other text on there, if you put on, like, Rage Against the Machine, just slap it on the cover art, you would have assumed that it's about... It's by Rage Against the Machine or some other band.
But no, this is Metallica.
Yeah.
And Jesus Christ, was it awful.
No.
I want to move on. 2008.
Okay. Do you want to at least read some reviews that are trying to defend this?
Yes. Read them out.
Okay. Yes, this album is not for people who want their favorite bands to put out the same formulaic stuff every album. Instead, this album is an experiment, a failed experiment. The idea is supposed to be as follows. Assume a garage band got together to jam. Raw, unfiltered, without all the bells and whistles of high-end production.
There's a reason, right? There's a reason garage bands that couple of kids get together don't get popular. It's because they suck. Just like this album.
Now suppose that band is Metallica. That is the stated idea of this album.
Well, maybe the idea just fucking sucks. How about that?
What actually happened is Metallica basically experimented with a sort of new metal sound which resulted in some of the rawest sounding music they've ever performed. I mean, come on, you really think Metallica is not going to use high-end production? They did that the right way, and it's called Kill 'Em All, where the production felt very raw.
Yeah.
Anyhow, I would describe the album this way. Anger and aggression unleashed in a full-on assault of the senses.
The only anger and aggression in this album is me.
Yeah, it is a full-on assault of your senses.
Yeah, see, this album was so hardcore, it had a therapist. This album was so hardcore, everybody got off alcoholism. You see how those things don't really make you angry? Having a therapist, improving your life. I mean, good for the bandmates, but that doesn't really get me in an angry mood.
The lyrics are some of the more personal lyrics this band has provided, and it is an emotional onslaught. If you want that, just listen to the Black Album. That's like, again, as I said before, that's their most personal album when it comes to lyrics. Right? The one negative, which can be distracting at first.
The one negative.
Second, even third listen, is that horrible snare drum. However, once you've given this album several listens, which I don't want to do, it becomes less distracting and lends itself to the overall rawness of the album. Here's a tip. Watch the film Some Kind of Monster, then pop this album in, which I did. Knowing the backstory, it will help it click that much more. I don't regret buying this album. With a little bit of patience, neither will you.
It's bad. It's real bad. This person, I cannot agree with them.
Were they even experimenting?
They weren't experimenting. They were getting a therapist and learning how to love each other.
Before we get into the next album, one more thing. I swear to God, one more thing. I think the reason why they sued Napster and they closed it off is because of one reason.
Why?
They didn't want the tracks of Saint Anger to be leaked online before it released. Because, think about it. If they didn't sue Napster and end their, whole thing before Saint Anger came out, people would have already listened to the leaked tracks on there and said, wow, this album sucks. Oh my god, I'm not buying this album, and sales would drop completely. Yeah. But since they sued Napster and basically killed them, people couldn't listen to the new record at the time before it came out. And that's why there were so many pre-orders at the time. Right?
Yep.
Because they had high hopes, because, it's Metallica. But...
Alright, let's move on to something positive. I could talk about Lulu, but I'm not going to until the end of this. Let's talk about Death Magnetic.
This one right here
is my second favorite. I love Death Magnetic. If you like guitar, if you like solos, if you like instrumentals, you'll like Death Magnetic.
And instead of trying to make a dumb sing-along song like Invisible Kid, this album goes back to the roots. You know, they even tried to get the logo back after they sold it off. Yeah, that's another thing I forgot to mention. They sold off their logo. But they got it back for this album, and it's pretty great.
What do you mean? Who did they sell the...
I don't know. It was up for auction or something. I don't know. It wasn't copyrighted anymore, but then they got it back. So, anyway, it was a return to the roots, and it was a step in the right direction.
It definitely was, and I really like it. I'm so proud of Metallica for pumping this out. I would say, immediately off the bat, I want to talk about All Nightmare Long. It's still pretty edgy, but it was fun. Great song. Cyanide, again, edgy, but it had a great solo in it. Judas Kiss, more Bible influences. And really, there's not this album works better as an album than it does as singular songs. That's why I don't want to talk about it like each song sequentially, because if you listen to the whole album in its entirety instead of just listening to one song, 3 songs in out of order, you're really not going to have the same experience. I just recommend listening to all of it. Do you have any thoughts on Death Magnetic?
It's a step in the right direction, but
it's also the joke we made at the beginning of the video.
They still tried to shake off all of the shit stains that was Saint Anger.
Yes.
And the only problem that both albums really have is the bad production.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the few flaws this album has, and it's the production. If you listen to it with headphones or something, you can, like, instantly tell that it's, like, it's so overcompressed, and it's so loud. Like, the first time I booted this in, like, I had to, like, turn it down almost all the way so I can listen to it without my ears bleeding. And it's too loud, it's overcompressed.
And that's a lot.
The production is just,
That's a lot to say for Mason, because he likes to listen to everything super loud, and it gets really obnoxious. So, if it's that loud, then goddamn.
And the reason why they made it that loud is because of one thing. The loudness war. If you don't know what this is, it was basically at the time where streaming was starting to slowly creep up on the mainstream, right? And digital music was starting to pop up in the late 2000s. And at this point, with the whole new technology and digital streaming becoming a lot more prevalent, a lot of artists try to make their music as loud as possible so they can, like, get more attention, I guess, even though that makes literally no sense. It comes all down to quality, not how loud your music is. Like, really? Why was this even a thing?
I want to talk for a second about the Death Magnetic album art. It's really cool, super intricate. It's like 2 reverse polarities of a magnet. But
it even won, like, an award.
It goes into a coffin.
They like, this album even won an award for, like, best packaging in 2008.
It was great. I love Death Magnetic.
And since Metallica did know that at this point, digital streaming was becoming a lot more prevalent, and CD sales were starting to plummet, they were like, okay, for the packaging for this, let's do something special. So what they did for this album is that they took the album and they made it with certain layers for the booklet. And every time you would flip a page, it was like you kind of digging through the coffin itself. You know? Like, there's like a full-on, like, cutout on the booklet pages. You know? And every time you would flip a page, you would see, like the same coffin, but, like, with less amount of dirt, as if you're, like, digging it up.
Yeah.
You know? That was a pretty cool gimmick. But there are artists that have done gimmicks that are a lot more impressive, and we'll get to those artists a lot later, let's just say.
Oh, let's just say that soon we will be receiving an album that is of much higher quality.
Let's be vague.
Let's be vague.
Let's be vague, yes.
Come on, you all know what it is, but let's be vague.
Yeah, so it was a pretty fun gimmick that they did for the album.
Death Magnetic, I would say it's a grade A album.
Oh, okay, never mind.
I've got to admit something to Mason here. I didn't listen to all of Hardwired to Self-Destruct.
We'll get to that later. There are a few more things that I want to talk about. Remember when I said that The Unforgiven was part of a trilogy?
Yeah.
Well, the third part of The Unforgiven is on this album. And unlike the previous 2 parts, this one is a lot more experimental, because it has this very, very beautiful, like, orchestral intro, instead of having, like, the big horn in the beginning.
Yeah.
Which kind of separates it from the rest, right? Because with this album, they made some ballads on here. You know, this is one of them. This one right here, Can You Really Forgive Yourself? That's the theme of this part right here. The first part, summarize again. Can we forgive you? Can I forgive you? And now, can I forgive myself? It's about self-discovery.
And I don't think Metallica can forgive themselves for Saint Anger, but...
But they try to redeem themselves.
And
you know?
Death Magnetic is the closest they've
trying to find the golden treasure that he keeps on referring to in the song. Like, you try to change yourself, but there's those desires that keep on getting shoved in your face, and you just can't seem to let go of those desires. Like, there's a reason why I'm fat, guys, okay? Food that tastes good, you know?
And I can definitely agree. But you gotta not give in to those desires. I try to coach Mason on how to be healthier, but it's gonna take a while.
Yeah, exactly. And the best song here, definitely the best song, is the lead single, The Day That Never Comes. I think this has to be, like, the most intricate song on this album, right?
It is. It's one of the most intricate Metallica songs.
It goes back
ever.
to, like, the very hardcore thrashing style, with the interlude having this, like, very atmospheric, kind of a acoustic, like, electric guitar that's soft, you know? Like, it's kind of like playing an electric guitar as if though it's an acoustic guitar, and that's the interlude of this thing. And it's pretty. It does have that atmosphere that the earlier works really had, you know, at least when it came to the first 5 albums. And overall, it's a pretty good comeback to their roots. I wouldn't really say that it's like a masterpiece, you know, like as good as their earlier works, but it's still a right place that they should be. Because at this point, they didn't care about being like mainstream, whatever. They cared about their fans.
They just wanted to make music.
Yeah. And I think that's it when it comes to Death Magnetic.
Now, I want to talk about Lulu for a second. Now, Mason, regale them the
2011.
tale of Lulu.
Didn't you just listen to like the first track?
Yeah, but regale them the tale of Lulu. How it came to be.
Okay. This one right here, we didn't even like listen to it mainly because it's not a studio album, but we wanted to briefly mention it.
I listened to some of it. It's hilarious. Well, some of it's hilarious. Some of it just hurts. But if you're looking for something to joke, like if you like watching bad movies or listening to bad music, you will love Lulu.
And Lulu was actually a collaboration project between Lou Reed and Metallica. And if you don't know who Lou Reed is, I think he was the lead singer for this heavy metal band, I assume. What was the band called again?
No clue, man. I don't...
Lou Reed. He was the lead singer for Velvet Underground. Are they even metal? I think they're like kind of like a rock.
Never heard of him.
Me neither. I think he's one of those guys who's like... I've heard that he kind of has that like avant-garde kind of style, I think. With the addition of Metallica's... I think... Doesn't James like use spoken words in this album?
Yeah.
Very weird, I know. And I've heard that this album has been memed a bunch of times, mainly because of the lead single, which basically just him yelling out, "I am the table, I am the table," over and over again.
He is a professional table on his bio.
Yeah, to the point that even like, even on like his Wikipedia page, it listed him as professional table, and they didn't even like change it for like the next few months. You know?
Is it changed now?
Yeah, it is. The joke isn't really that funny anymore. It's not relevant, I guess.
It's still kind of funny. Now, we're gonna move on to Hardwired to Self-Destruct. I didn't listen to all of it.
I did, though.
Now, sorry, Mason, you gotta cover this on your own.
Well, okay.
It's long! It's
Is
2
it that
hours...
long?
Wait, no, I might have...
Load is the longest one.
I clicked the wrong one, accidentally. Okay, it's shorter. But it's pretty long. It is 1 hour 17 minutes. Which is only beaten out by 2 minutes by Load.
Alright. So, Hardwired to Self-Destruct. This was released back in 2016. It is their latest album that they released. Now, at this point, I think this has to be like the longest gap between studio albums. Because how many years has been between those two albums? Like at least 8 years, I guess, right? Yeah.
I'm getting tired, folks. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And for this album, they kind of did the same thing that they did with Death Magnetic, but they wanted to have a lot more flair when it comes to the overall sound, because it's one of those, like, remember when you said with Death Magnetic where it works a lot more effectively if you listen to it all the way through?
Yeah.
they tried to make an album that you could just kind of play through one song separately and enjoy it. You know, you don't have to go through like the entire thing all in one piece to effectively enjoy an album, you know? And it is very apparent on songs like Hardwired, which is the opening and the lead single, where it's one of the more straightforward thrash songs. It's pretty good, it's pretty decent opener, where it has like, it's basically just him kind of ranting about how humanity is going downhill, which is a very big theme on this album. And yeah, it's a very big theme, especially when it comes to songs like Spit Out the Bone and Man Unkind. The song titles can get kind of corny at times, but it doesn't really reflect on the quality on this album.
It's not as bad as Saint Anger. Nothing will ever be.
And is it just me, or does Atlas Rise kind of sound like Master Puppets a little bit?
Yeah, a lot of their later works are homages to their earlier works.
Yeah, I think with this album, they're kind of wanting to mix in a lot of their modern aspects with the tone and the riffs of their earlier work, because this was back when they just toured with their Kill 'Em All anniversary, and it really did get them into the right place. You know, they felt a lot more angrier and rage-filled, you know,
and alcoholic, unfortunately,
and just very into the mood of their earlier work at this point, since they just got finished with the Kill 'Em All anniversary tour that they did. And when it hits, when it really does hit, like songs like Hardwired, Atlas Rise, Moth into Flame. Moth into Flame is very great. Confusion I really liked. And then there's the banger, which is, I think, is the best song on here. Did you listen to Spit Out the Bone?
I did not.
That's a shame. That's actually a really, like, legitimately good song. I'll show you after we're done recording this. Spit Out the Bone has to be one of the few songs on here that doesn't recycle anything. You know? If we had an album in the future that kind of had that originality that Spit Out the Bone had, I think they would be in the right place. You know, I think this feels more of like kind of a sequel to Death Magnetic than an album by itself, you know?
Yeah.
And there are some pretty solid tracks on here.
Well, I couldn't say because I've never listened to it, but...
But when it doesn't hit, it just feels kind of middle of the road. You know? Like, when you compare it to their earlier works, when it comes to worst to best, I would just put their latest two albums, like, right in the middle. You know, they aren't good, they aren't bad, they're pretty decent records in my opinion, you know? So, if you want to give this one a listen, to really support modern Metallica, and if you really want to get very optimistic about what direction they're heading into, give this one a spin. Give their latest records a spin, if you're into that thrash part of the band. And ever since then, they've been wanting to release an album a lot more sooner, because like they're in this point where they're kind of slowing down a little bit, at least when it comes to the consistency of their releases, right? Yeah. You know how most rock bands are, right? They're getting old. New rock bands are coming in, I guess. But
Metallica's been keeping it up though. They released a ton in the 2000s. They didn't die like King Crimson or stagnate like Pearl Jam.
Like, hey, so I'm kind of anxious whether or not they are going to rush again, because when they were being interviewed whether or not they're going to release an album again, at this very moment they're writing new material. James Hetfield, he's writing new material as we're reporting this. We don't really know if we are going to hear new stuff from them very soon, but they are planning on getting it a lot more faster, and I don't want them to rush, you know, because when it comes to like pumping them out as fast as you can, don't do that. When you're a content creator, you have to do anything but
yeah
rush.
We would know because we've started being a content creator. Our band episode was kind of rushed and we just didn't release it.
Yeah, so when it comes to be in the direction of the future of the band. Am I bright-minded on the future of Metallica? Kind of. At least they know what the fans want.
They can put out some good music. They've done it before.
Yes. Yes, definitely. So, will we see them again? Maybe in 2020 or 2021 or something like that? Who knows? If you're thirsty for more Metallica, just a brief little mention before we close that one here. Definitely check out Garage Inc. It's a pretty good cover album, very solid. I think it's like their best content that they've made in kind of their Load era Metallica.
Yeah.
And everybody knows about their cover on Jar of Whiskey. Everybody knows that. So yeah, is there anything else you want to say before we close this thing
Metallica is a great band. Listen to all their stuff like we did, except for Say Anger. Screw that. And I hope everybody has a great day.
We'll see you guys later.